So before I begin, I'd like to dedicate this gathering, this sermon, to those of you who lit a candle. How shall we understand hope? It's an emotion deeper than simple optimism. It's more mysterious and elusive. It's a feeling we cultivate over a lifetime. And it's also a state with which we are graced. To live by hope is to believe in things not seen. Hope can be a noun. The dictionary defines hope as an optimistic state of mind based on an expectation of positive outcomes with respect to events in life. Here's an example some of us can relate to using that definition. Quote, she looked through her pockets in the hope of finding her car keys. Hope can also be a verb, meaning to cherish a desire with anticipation. For example, I know many of us here say, we hope the war in Ukraine will end soon. In a spiritual context, hope is a choice we make. As Desmond Tutu taught, hope is being able to see that there is light despite all the darkness. Every major spiritual revelation known to humankind is based on the bedrock of hope. A spirituality of hope gives followers the power to believe in life, the skill to cope with the hard times in life, and the capacity to live a full life in spite of whatever burdens come with it. This morning, I'm going to introduce you to three people who were scarred by struggle and transformed by hope. They each faced challenges in their personal lives and found that hope was a powerful antidote to despair. Their stories serve to highlight three qualities that support the spiritual practice of hope: patience, persistence, and courage. Let's start by considering the role of patience. Some things can be done quickly. For example, we can easily find fast food rather than cook a meal from scratch. We can send a text rather than pick up a phone and call someone. But hope is not something quickly built. It is, in fact, found in unexpected places during a long journey of questing for something greater than ourselves, which leads me to my first story. Myron Rolle was the son of Bahamian immigrant parents. And when he and his family immigrated to the United States, he learned quickly in grade school how to respond to being called racial slurs by beating up the bullies who taunted him. When he was 11 years old, his brother gave him a copy of a book titled Gifted Hands. It is a book that is a memoir written by a doctor who grew up as an inner city youth with very poor grades, but who rose to become the director of pediatric neurosurgery at the world-famous Johns Hopkins University Hospital. The book was a life changer. After reading it, Myron stopped getting angry and fighting and started intentionally chasing two really big life goals. And they were so big, he talked about it so often, he wrote them in his grade school workbook. One of his goals was to play NFL football, and the other was to go to medical school and become a neurosurgeon. Myron was qualified for both. He was very bright. He was very strong, healthy. He applied himself during high school, and he was accepted at Florida State and flourished as a defensive back. He was also selected to be a Rhodes Scholar. That award took him to Oxford, where he studied a course in medical anthropology, but really his primary dream was NFL. Going to medical school, that dream got put in a more dormant phase. He trained intensely for the NFL draft. He was chosen, and he played 1 year for the Tennessee Titans, but they parted ways with him once his 1-year contract was up. Interestingly, and upsettingly to Myron, they told him, it's not that you're bad at football, you're quite good, but you're good at other things besides football. And some of these other guys, that's all they have. That's their one card, football. So we're letting you go, and we know you're going to go on and be a success in life. That didn't really sit well with Myron. He really wasn't ready to quit yet on football, but he came home and he languished for quite a few months until finally one day his mother sat him down and she showed him that grade school notebook where he had put those 2 big goals down. She reminded him, as she pointed to the first one, NFL football, and said, that one's done. And now it's time for you to get moving on the second one. By using a 2% philosophy, this is something he acquired from one of his football coaches, he strove each day to be just 2% better than he had been the day before. He patiently took steps every day toward becoming a neurosurgeon. Because he was passionate about his short and long-term goals, they didn't feel daunting to him, but manageable. Each small gain brought him closer and gave him a feeling of satisfaction as he could see his own progress. Today, he is Dr. Roll. He is age 35, finishing his neuroscience residency at Harvard Medical School and the Mass General Hospital. He credits his mom for, quote, her words of encouragement, her belief in me, her whole disposition during that time was just what I needed to keep my own hope alive for being able to move forward into the next chapter of my life and to fulfill my second dream. Myron is patiently striving to balance his intense career with long hours and other pursuits to be, in his words, the best father to my 4 young children, the most attentive husband to my beautiful wife, the best neurosurgeon to my so deserving patients, and the most dedicated mentor to a dozen young Black men who are all pre-med students interested in the same specialty, neurosurgery. He explains, every day I commit my life to each of these roles and to myself because they all deserve my best. I believe God placed me here to be a beacon of hope, to be a light, to be an advocate. I am blessed with a great family and a core set of close-knit friends who can make me laugh and pour life into me. My story shows others that every person has something brilliant in them, and each has a responsibility and a purpose for which they were placed here on this earth at this moment in time. The second spiritual practice of hope, I told you, is courage. Courage comes from the French word, coeur, which combines 2 words, heart and spirit. To be courageous is not to be without fear. To be courageous is to consciously choose choose hope over despair, choose surrender, not control, and choose trust rather than doubt. My first full-time job working as an alcohol and drug abuse counselor was a field that I stayed in for 7 years. I met courageous people I will never forget. I learned by heart the Serenity Prayer, which is powerful wisdom for life. You may know it. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. One of my most memorable clients was a big, burly, very tall, very strong truck driver. He famously said during his graduation speech, in those days, treatment programs were 30 days and they were residential. You came into a program, you lived in that program. And before you left, when you graduated and were about to be released, you had to address the entire congregation, as it were. And he told the community that I, his counselor, was a woman with a velvet hammer. And he knew from the start he wasn't going to be able to get away with much with me assigned to him as his counselor. That was memorable. But what I most remember, even more than that, was his farewell remarks to his therapy group, a group that met every day during those 30 days, twice a day. And he said to them, that serenity prayer that we all say, that serenity prayer helps me not fixate on who I am, but on whose I am. I am God's loving, cranky, aging, self-centered, and I'll clean it up, beloved. I came into recovery a real hotshot, but there were other sober men who helped me work my way up to servant. Every day, I pray to be a good servant because I've learned that it is the path to happiness in life. I pray every night for me, for my family, my friends, those of us here sick with addictions. I pray that we will all have healing and grace. And I always tell God straight out, look, I think we both know what we can see. We have our hands on here. I'm a real mess. Please help me not be, and I'll clean it up, such a jerk. Those declarations to his therapy group were so powerful. They were so honest, so raw and deeply soulful that I understood for the first time how hard won sobriety is and how much courage it takes to walk that journey. I knew then that my education in addictions had truly begun. While I had learned a lot from 8 years of school with books and lectures during college and grad school, now I was going to be taught by the real teachers of life. They would teach me about grit, about sorrow, about loss and tragedy and triumph. Some of the best teachers were the doctors and nurses who were in their own recovery. Dr. Brad Bowen was a psychiatrist. I'll never forget him. He would take his prescription pad out and he would write tincture of time and hand it to a client, a patient, because that patient was so feeling sorry for himself or herself. And he would say, tincture of time, my friend. It took you 30 years to get here. It might take another 30 for you to get fully well. So tincture of time. He was a brilliant, wise, suffering soul, I think. I learned from those experiences, my clients, my coworkers, the doctors and nurses, I learned that humility is a form of courage, and that recovery begins when the ego has finally been brought down to size. You know, when you've lost everything, you know where to go but up. A person surrenders to his or her higher power in order to turn his or her life around. I witnessed addicts in treatment being released from the sensations, the feelings, the agonizing thoughts associated with the illness, and saw that freedom not only increased their capacity for love, but it also fostered a hopeful outlook with an expanded sense of possibilities for where life could go. I learned firsthand how this illness is holistic. It impacts the mind, the body, and the spirit, like all illnesses do. It is a heroic battle being waged for the mind, the soul, and the body, and it takes courage each and every day. And so we come to the third quality of persistence. My friend Mary will always be someone I associate with that word. She was my friend for 30 years. We met when I was a teaching assistant in grad school, 8 o'clock, Psychology 101. I can still see her standing on the first day of class in front of the podium with a tape recorder clutched to her chest, looking at me and making a straightforward request. My name is Mary, and I'm legally blind. May I record your lectures? Of course, I responded affirmatively, and further suggested if there was anything else she needed during the semester, I would be glad to help. And thus began an enduring and loving friendship that sustained us both. Mary was visually impaired from birth due to a condition called albinism. She had white hair and these strange looking eyes that fluttered around in her eyelids. Her parents were Greek. They were her most important teachers, according to her. They taught her how to deal with life's challenges as a handicapped child. They told her that she had two choices in life, either to become negative and full of self-pity and resentful, or she could pick herself up, learn from everything and everyone, and go forward with dignity. The first path was not life-giving, but the second would bring her joy and purpose and meaning as it helped her navigate life's challenges. Mary was 50 years old when she graduated with honors and a perfect 4.0. She was a disciplined student. She was an active and outspoken member of the Handicapped Students Association at IUPUI. She went on to pursue a master's degree, where she graduated with honors again 2 years later, once more leading by example. She was an inspiring person on campus for both handicapped and able-bodied students and teachers. And later in her career, she became an inspiring advocate for handicapped children in her role at the State Department Board of Health as director of a help desk that served parents of handicapped children. Throughout her long life, Mary overcame many instances of prejudice. She endured being treated differently, which often made her feel lonely and misunderstood. She took her parents' advice to heart, and she accepted life on its own terms and became someone who was hopeful, always optimistic, always looking for the best meaning, the best possibilities for herself and others. If she met someone who disliked her because of how she looked, she would focus on learning more about them so that she could help them feel more comfortable in her presence. She often won people over in this way. And for those who couldn't be won over, she accepted their choice and quietly moved on. As I said, she accomplished a great deal in her life. She cultivated many close friendships with her neighbors, fellow parishioners in the Greek Orthodox Church, co-workers. She was self-made, one-of-a-kind, hardworking, loving, determined to make a difference in the world. with a great soft spot in her heart for children. She worked at the Greek festival for 30 years. So for some of you in the room that lived in the community for a long time and have enjoyed that festival, you very likely encountered Mary. In her late 70s, she was recognized by the bishop. He flew her to another city. I can't remember where, but there was a special award ceremony for people of the church like Mary, who had worked and raised a lot of money, gave a lot of time, put a lot of effort into helping the poor and the disadvantaged in the congregation and in the community of Indianapolis. Her award humbled her. She appreciated it. It brought pride to her family and to the honor, I think, to the Indianapolis community. But Mary just would smile. She was pleased, but it was the work. It was what she wanted to do. It was her choice. It was how she used her hope to help others. And so in each of those three stories this morning, we can clearly see one of the qualities of hope that's intrinsically central to people living up to their potential. Hope is like a doorway, a key that opens a doorway. And we can also see that hope is not necessarily found outside of us. It lies in the spiritual life we cultivate within. I personally believe that hope plays a significant part in helping us be transformed into the people we were meant to become. For Myron Roll, Dr. Roll, to become the best neurosurgeon he could be. For my addicted clients, including the burly truck driver, to reach a lasting sobriety, to live a life that was full and healthy and could do some good in the world. And for Mary to have been the best person she delighted in being, in spite of her blindness. What gives me hope for 2023 is knowing that when there's rain in our lives and someone comes along willing to be our sun, it creates the most beautiful rainbows. In each of us, there is a spirituality of hope that imbues us with the power to believe in life's possibilities and in the goodness in ourselves and in others. May you be blessed by that power. May you be safe from harm, and may you be filled with hope when you most are in need of it.